The live stream has started as well, okay?
Ready. Sonna, yep. Okay, welcome everybody. Namaste. As usual, before we start any program, we're just going to do a little prayer to make sure everything goes well. So we're just going to do a Ganesh prayer. If everybody puts your hands together. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samarprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryesu Sarvada. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So first of all, I want to thank you everybody, and including Simon Foster, who is the Police and Crimes Commissioner for West Midlands. I'm just going to be running through a bit of his history, so everybody has an introduction on who he is and what he does. And then we're going to hand it over to Simon to lead, tell us. I have given him some probing questions that he hopefully will answer today. So just kicking off with what it is Simon Foster was elected the Police and Crimes Commissioner for the West Midlands on the 6th of May. He has lived, worked and brought his family up in the West Midlands for 36 years. Simon's career in law started 42 years ago as he was practicing as a legal aid sister for 35 years. He has worked in the community law centre and in a private practice, and he was also a partner in a legal aid law firm for 22 years. He specialised in housing and public law. He represented people who are at risk from evictions from their home, those living in poor housing conditions, and the homeless. After being elected, he has been working for, obviously, as a Police and Crimes Commissioner, and today we're going to find out what he has achieved, what he has done for our community, and what he intends to do going forth. So Simon Foster, handing it over to yourself.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Jazz. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you all. Thank you very much for the invitation and opportunity to meet and speak with you. It's much appreciated. The subject on which I'm speaking to you today is important because community safety, policing, crime and criminal justice are matters that are of significant public concern and interest. And this evening, I'm intending to give you a brief overview of the work that I've been doing since I was elected as West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner. As Jazz referenced in the introduction, my background is that I started my legal career 42 years ago, practiced as a legal aid solicitor for 35 years until, of course, I was elected on the 6th of May last year and officially took office as West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner on the 13th of May. I've always been driven by the need for access to justice, equality before the law and the rule of law for all, and not just for the few. I'll just say a few words about the role of the Police and Crime Commissioner because it's not a role that is always well understood amongst the general public. It's important to understand it's not about operational day-to-day policing because that's the responsibility of the Chief Constable. I'm elected to represent the people, not the police. It's about democratic accountability and ensuring the police provide an effective and efficient police service for the benefit of the people and communities of the West Midlands. It is a complex role, but in simple terms, a Police and Crime Commissioner has three core duties. Firstly, to prepare a police and crime plan that sets out the needs, priorities and objectives of the people in the West Midlands as far as the police service is concerned. Secondly, to set the police budget, and that includes the council tax policing precept, which is that part of your council tax that goes towards paying for local policing. And then finally, to hold the Chief Constable and the police service to account on behalf of the people. And in addition to that, there's also, for example, the power to appoint and dismiss the Chief Constable. The past 10 years, there's been a challenging time for policing our essential preventative public services and our criminal justice system for all of the reasons that you'll be familiar with and which I don't intend to rehearse on this occasion. Our underfunded and overworked police service has all too often been left to pick up the pieces. And of course, in addition to that, over the past 2 years, also the COVID-19 pandemic has presented yet further unprecedented challenges to policing and the criminal justice system. Furthermore, we have what's been described by the now former Chief Inspector of Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Policing, Sir Tom Windsor, a criminal justice system that is in too many respects his words, not mine, defective and dysfunctional. As I mentioned earlier, it's a statutory duty of a police and crime commissioner to prepare a police and crime plan, and that's important because the chief constable has to have regard to that plan, and it can be used to hold the police service to account on behalf of the people of the West Midlands. And on the very first day I took office, on the 13th of May, I commenced my consultation towards the preparation of a new West Midlands police and crime plan. It was really important to me that I commenced that process immediately because, as some of you will be aware, the election was supposed to, of course, have taken place in May 20, but as a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic, the election was postponed and only took place in May 21. And so all police and crime commissioners who were elected in May 21 have only been elected for 3 years and not for 4 years. So it's 25% less time to do what you need to do as part of your programme. So we carried out an extensive and wide-ranging consultation across the West Midlands because I wanted that to be a truly accountable, participative and transparent process. And I'm pleased to announce that we officially launched the plan on the 1st of November 2021. And the plan's based on the manifesto on which I was democratically elected. However, it's also informed by and has had regard to the public consultation. And because of that, I believe it reflects the needs, priorities and objectives of the people of the West Midlands. The plan has a particular focus on rebuilding community policing, combating violence against women and girls and domestic abuse, tackling and reducing violent crime, including knife crime, prevention, early intervention and addressing the underlying causes of crime, the need for that essential partnership work, particularly with local communities, the need to build trust and confidence in our police service, the importance of having a police service that is representative of the people and communities that it serves. We have to eliminate any bias, disproportionality, discrimination and racism from policing and the wider criminal justice system. And finally, underpinning all of that is the need for equality and human rights for all and not just for the few. And this plan, it's a comprehensive agenda for change, development and progress in policing, rebuilding community policing, putting prevention at the heart of what we do, and ultimately delivering justice, safety and security for all of our people and communities of the West Midlands. Community policing is the bedrock of British policing. It embodies the principle of policing by consent, on which policing in our country is built. And over the past 10 years, community policing has been dismantled as a consequence of ill-advised, misconceived and poor decision-making on the part of successive central governments. In 2010, in the West Midlands, we had 1,800 police officers allocated to community policing, but by 2018, we had just 700. That was a big mistake. It was counterproductive and it was a false economy. And we've all been paying the price because we need proactive, preventative, problem solving and visible community policing. And I've begun the crucial work of rebuilding community policing to keep our communities safe and secure. And as a start on my mission to rebuild community policing, I'm working with the Chief Constable to put 450 additional police officers into neighbourhood policing by 2023 to strengthen the local bonds between the public and the police so as to improve our ability to be able to proactively solve local issues before they become critical problems. And I'm pleased to say that we already have in place just under 50% of that target. And these police officers will be allocated across the 8 neighbourhood policing units within the West Midlands. I'm particularly pleased to have appointed the region's first ever Victims Commissioner. Indeed, I believe that I'm the first police and crime commissioner in the country to appoint a Victims Commissioner. And it's the Victims Commissioner's responsibility to act as a powerful advocate for victims throughout the entire spectrum of the criminal justice system. I've more than doubled the number of independent domestic violence advocates and independent sexual violence advocates in the West Midlands from 31 to 64, and that was following an increase of 39% in domestic abuse in recent times reported to the police. And those IDFAs and ISFAs provide a vital service to victims of violence against women and girls and domestic abuse. They provide essential advice, help and support to enable victims and survivors to navigate the system, obtain access to justice and rebuild lives. And that increase in IDFAs and ISFAs was a key manifesto commitment of mine in relation to my pledge to combat violence against women and girls and domestic abuse. I've also set up the first West Midlands wide dedicated support service for victims of hate crime, following a 41% increase in hate crime incidents reported to the police in recent times. And that service will provide emotional, personal and practical support for victims, and it'll accept referrals from the police and agencies, as well as those who want to refer themselves. And the intention is to provide better outcomes for victims of hate crime. I've invested in safer street schemes to improve street lighting, provide movable CCTV and secure access ways and alleyways. And that'll include investment in initiatives such as a public campaign to challenge and change attitudes amongst men and boys, an educational program led by specialist workers in schools to promote healthy relationships and respect, and a training program to raise awareness of the harm faced by sex workers and homeless women, and new designs to make our public spaces safer. And that's included my campaign over Christmas and the New Year to encourage men to be upstanders and not bystanders. The relaunch of the No Excuse for Abuse campaign to encourage victims of domestic abuse not to suffer in silence, and Project Empowerment on the public transport network to encourage the reporting of unwanted sexual behaviour on the transport network. In addition to all of that, on the 29th of April, I've now launched the Here and Now campaign that's encouraging all men and boys in the West Midlands to have important conversations with their peers about the need to end violence against women and girls. And we're calling on all men in the region to have more open conversations about the part they need to play in challenging and changing actions and behaviours. Last year, we secured an additional £3.4 million to support West Midlands Police's operational response to serious violence, and in particular knife crime. And that pays for additional policing activity in violent crime hotspots. In addition to that, we have had £7 million invested in our West Midlands Violence Reduction Unit. And that unit focuses on prevention, early intervention, and addressing the underlying causes of serious violence. And that includes education work in schools, such as the Mentors in Violence Prevention and Precious Lives programs. 50,000 children have now benefited from that education program. We have youth workers in A&E departments and custody centres who are available to support young people who are victims of violence. There are rescue workers and outreach workers to work with young people who've been drawn into county lines as a consequence of criminal exploitation. And the recently launched Step Together scheme that places youth workers back on the streets to chaperone young people at risk of violence to and from school. And I'm pleased to say that in the West Midlands, we've secured a further £14.5 million funding over the next 3 years to continue the work of the Violence Reduction Unit. And we've also secured a 3-year funding settlement to tackle serious youth violence in the sum of £3 million a year. And that will focus on delivering the additional operational policing response within violent crime hotspots. And in addition to all of that, I also fund a network of weapons surrender bins across the West Midlands, and I'm pleased the investment that I've been making in the network of 20 knife bins across the West Midlands has been producing results. Over the past 6 months, more than 2,000 weapons, including knives, machetes, and guns have been recovered and will now be destroyed. And that means there are less dangerous weapons out on the streets of the West Midlands. On the 18th
You've muted yourself, Simon.
Simon, sorry, I've muted you accidentally. Could you unmute yourself, please?
Is it, hopefully they're you're not trying to tell you that it's boring or something. No, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I'm just talking about the Safer Travel Plan, which we've introduced with a view to preventing and reducing crime and antisocial behaviour, and to improve passenger safety on our public transport network. And a key proposal is to not only retain the number of police officers assigned to the transport network at current levels, but to significantly increase the number of uniformed transport safety officers as well. Fraud is rising across the country, and despite what the government's business secretary recently said, fraud is a crime that people do experience in their everyday to-day lives. And that can include in-person fraud and cyber fraud. And prevention is key. However, the national response to fraud and cybercrime too often lacks coordination and is failing victims. There's a clear need for an end-to-end overhaul of the way fraud is dealt with throughout our criminal justice system. Currently, Fraud victims are directed from local forces to action fraud at the City of London Police and back again without any clear expectations of the response that they can expect. And fraud's a national issue that needs a national response, and that is commensurate with the level of demand, risk and threat. And unfortunately, in the words of the former government Treasury Minister who recently resigned, we currently have a government that has, and I quote, little interest in the consequences of fraud to our society. And that's unacceptable. The government needs to cease its all too casual, laissez-faire attitude and to commit to doing what it takes to prevent and tackle fraud. And just say a few words about police stations, because I know that is a matter of concern for some people, quite understandably. But it is essential that the national, regional and local context is fully considered and understood when discussing police stations and the West Midlands Police Estate Strategy. The fact of the matter is that for the past decade, we've had a government and now a Prime Minister that doesn't believe in and is not prepared to invest in local community police stations. And that's led to the closure of over 600 police stations across the country, including 65 police stations by the Prime Minister himself when he was Mayor of London. I'm, of course, happy to discuss the position in relation to particular police stations across the West Midlands. However, in accordance with the Chief Constable's estate strategy, which I approved on the 23rd of November 2021, I would say that the key matters to understand are as follows. Firstly, the commitment to retaining 10 public contact police stations across the 8 neighbourhood policing units remains. The number of proposed response hubs will now increase from 6 to 8. There'll be investment in modernisation of police buildings so as to provide a police estate that is fit for the 21st century. The essential revenue savings of £5 million per annum will protect 100 police officers, without which police officer numbers would fall further. The strategy will eliminate the current £24 million in backlog maintenance costs. Neighbourhood policing teams will be co-located locally, for example, in community fire stations or local authority buildings, to ensure they remain at the heart of local communities. And the strategy will ensure there's a focus on delivering a greener police estate. And in the event that police buildings are to be disposed of, best value will be sought while seeking to identify any opportunities relating to safer value. In November, I launched a campaign for fair funding for the West Midlands, because between 2010 and 2019, West Midlands Police lost £175 million in funding and 2,221 police officers. That was 25% of our police officers in the West Midlands went during that period of time. And that's had a serious adverse impact on police presence, response times, the conduct of investigations, and the ability to prevent and tackle crime, all to the detriment of the people of the West Midlands. And whilst we're due to receive a net increase of 1,200 police officers by 2023, that will still leave West Midlands Police with a shortfall of 1,000 officers as compared with the numbers they had back in 2010. And sadly, when it comes to our police officers in the West Midlands, there is to be no levelling up. So in addition, we also have an unfair national police funding formula that's unfit for purpose and which disproportionately disadvantages West Midlands Police in the sum of around £40 million a year. And the government's belatedly started a review of how police funding is distributed between forces across the country. I've therefore written to all MPs in the West Midlands to ask them to join me in a cross-party campaign, calling on the government to reinstate our 1,000 missing police officers, provide adequate and fair funding for West Midlands Police, and a deal that will ensure adequate and fair funding for West Midlands Police. And I want to build a strong, united voice. And that's why I'm asking all MPs in the West Midlands, cross-party, to join me in that campaign. People will be aware that Birmingham and the West Midlands will be hosting the Commonwealth Games from 28th of July to the 8th of August, not far away now. It'll be the single largest policing operation in the history of West Midlands Police. People might also be aware that our current Chief Constable, Sir David Thompson, will be retiring this year. And it'll be my responsibility as West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner to appoint the new Chief Constable of West Midlands. And that's a process I'm currently engaged in. In the interest of time, I'll not cover each of those matters now, but I'm very happy to deal with them during the course of questions if people want any further information. And finally, as I said during the course of my campaign, I want to be a people and communities police and crime commissioner. A commissioner who engages with, listens to and works with the people and communities of the West Midlands. And that's why since I was elected, I've attended many community events across the West Midlands, and I'll continue to do so, because ultimately it doesn't matter how effective our police service is, or our statutory organisations, the third sector, or our elected representatives. We can't resolve the big issues that matter to all of us unless we engage with, listen to and work with communities. Policing has to be done with people and communities and not to people and communities. And in this country, we call that policing by consent. My top priority will always be justice, safety and security for all of our people and communities of the West Midlands. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you for that, Simon. I'm going to start off with a few questions which I did give you initially, and hopefully we can get a response on them. And then I'm going to come on to something that you mentioned about levelling up. So the first one was, obviously since the 70s and 80s with the Macpherson's report, I think it's been clear and concise without any reservation or without any question that not just West Midlands Police, not just the Metropolitan Police, most of the police forces, unfortunately, are institutionally racist. And that has an adverse effect on the communities that they're meant to be serving, especially within the BAME community. I don't know if you're aware, the Brig Summit that happened, I think we did discuss it, the Brig Summit that happened in Birmingham, and there was a person, and he's happy to me to mention his name. His name is Bobby, and his son's name's Nathan, where to the point in the 90s, he was arrested, a bag was put over his head, and he was beaten up by the police. Since then, he has challenged it on numerous occasions, and he has gotten an apology. But do you really think when somebody's abused by an organisation that meant to be protecting him, an apology is sufficient?
Thanks, Jazz. I mean, I'm not aware of the particular circumstance of that individual case, plainly, but circumstances such as that require that people have access to justice, and that those people who are responsible for any unlawful behaviour are held to account according to the law. That's absolutely essential. And to the extent that that behaviour is in any way motivated by any bias, disproportionality, discrimination, or racism within policing or the wider criminal justice system, then we have to take steps to eliminate it. It's unacceptable. It's entirely contrary to justice, equality before the law, and the rule of law. And you're right, there's many decades of concern around these issues, dating back, well before the Scarman report, of course. But of course, that's often seen as a landmark report, as indeed was the Macpherson report that preceded it, and as indeed was the Lammy review that was carried out in 2017. All of those reports have highlighted a lamentable failure to address some of those key issues that you outlined. And from my own personal point of view, I'm committed to eliminating any bias, disproportionality, discrimination and racism, as I say, within policing or within the wider criminal justice system. And we have to have a police service that is actively anti-racist.
Okay, that's great to know. I think, was it with yourself and Andy Street, I think you did promise that you'll recruit 1,000 BAME officers. Have you managed to get those stats?
Yeah, I have those stats, Jazz. I mean, that was a pledge that was made by my predecessor, David Jameson, who was the previous West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner. However, I did adopt it as part of my programme, and I've come into office partway through that process. But I can certainly share with you the numbers in connection with that. So the pledge, the aim was to recruit 1,000 police officers from Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities out of the approximate 2,800 police officers that would need to be recruited in order to achieve the net uplift of 1,200 police officers in accordance with the National Police Uplift Programme. That was the basis of the pledge. I can share with you the current numbers that we have in connection with that. Firstly, I would just draw to your attention the overall numbers to begin with, which are that back in April 2010, the proportion of police officers in West Midlands Police who are from Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities was 8%.
Do you have the numbers exact? Do you have the exact numbers instead of
percentage?
Oh
yeah. No, I'm going to give you the numbers. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so I'll give you the numbers in accordance with the Police Uplift Programme for sure. They're the ones I've got because that was the pledge. They're the numbers that relate to the pledge. But in May 22, that figure of 8% has now risen to 13.48%. So there has been progress in relation to representation of Black, Asian and minority ethnic members of our community within West Midlands Police during that period of time. The numbers are slightly better than that if you include police staff and not just police officers. But in terms of the numbers around the pledge relating to the National Police Uplift, I will give you those numbers. They are that
Sorry, when you say uplift program, is that within the West Midlands or nationally?
Well, the Police Uplift Programme is a national police uplift programme, but these numbers relate to the West Midlands.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah, so the National Police Uplift Programme applies to all 43 territorial police forces. But these numbers I'm going to give to you are the specific West Midlands numbers. So we've just concluded year 2 of the 3-year National Police Uplift Programme. So the total number of officers recruited during years 1 and year 2 of the National Police Uplift in the West Midlands is 2,090. And the total number of Black, Asian and ethnic minority officers recruited within that 2,090 is 350. So that represents a percentage of about 17.5%.
Does that concern you?
Yeah, it is because I would far prefer that West Midlands Police had done better.
Because if you sorry, if I'm just going to bring this, because 17.5%, and bearing in mind that West Midlands or just Birmingham alone is 51.4% BAME.
Well, I think
a reflection of the police force that it's serving.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're waiting for the. I think there's the numbers in connection with the most recent census. I think we're awaiting publication later this year, aren't we, to get final confirmation of those numbers in accordance with the most recent census data, which I think are going to be published later this year. But
the indication has been to be over 50% BAME within the West Midlands.
I've seen that. I've seen that estimate for sure. Yeah, I'm aware of that. Now, the end of year 3 forecast, as against the original target of 1,000, is 564 on the basis of a total estimated gross recruitment of 2,800, and that would be 20% from Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities. So there's more work to be done. It's disappointing that it's not better. I know that West Midlands Police have made significant efforts to promote recruitment within the National Police Uplift Programme of people from the Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities within the West Midlands. I've certainly personally participated in some of those initiatives in order to drive recruitment. And of course, remember, we're talking about recruitment, of course, not just about recruitment, because of course, retention and career progression are important as well. But just on the subject of recruitment, they're the current numbers. As I say, back in 2010, those people from Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities represented 8%. It's now about 13.5%. So progress has been made, but it's not good enough. Absolutely, it's not.
And I just want to confirm, these are people who have not just applied, but have actually gone through the training and the system and passed out and qualified police officers.
Yeah, the numbers I'm giving you are those police officers who have actually been recruited. And
have firm job offers or are in the process of getting it or are actually police officers now, not just the applications made.
No. These numbers are recruits, not applications.
Excellent. So not only are you moving in the right directions, I'd applaud you for that. And anything that we could do to help as Hindu Council Centre England, our services are rendered to you on that basis. We are going to run to some questions now. I think Narendraji has been waiting for a while. So if you can just unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Narendra Kumar. I'm retired NHS consultant, and at present I'm chairman of Arya Samaj Vedic Mission West Midlands. We bought a 100-year-old church on Rookery Road, 321 Rookery Road, Handsworth, Birmingham. I fully support your demand with your other colleagues for 1,000 extra police for West Midlands. And being worked in NHS for most of my life in UK, I must say the Labour Party, and this is a very true fact, Labour Party has always put extra new money in NHS. I work in the time when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister, and she cut down the investment of money in NHS down to the bone. So that's one thing. Since we moved in 2018, there are few problems we face in this Rookery Road, Handsworth area. And I know you mentioned a lot of work is being done by police, but there's still much more work needs to be done. There is a definite problem of drugs and alcohol. My part-time manager, Miss Lisa, she tells me that she doesn't feel brave enough to walk on Rookery Road, even in the daylight. And one thing we noticed and members complained before this COVID-19, we celebrate Diwali in a big way in our temple. And Diwali function, Festival of Light, usually falls in end of October, November. So nights and Diwali has to be celebrated in the evening hours. So after the end of event, which is about 11 p.m. to 11:30 p.m., our lady members and friends who attend the celebration, they feel really unsafe to walk to Rookery School. And we hired the Rookery School car parking facility because we haven't got much of car parking space. So my request to you as a police commissioner is that, if possible, if you could introduce some regular police patrolling in the area, and definitely some extra policing on the evening when we are celebrating Diwali. We will be quite happy to let you know in well advance the day we will celebrate Diwali, hopefully this year, COVID out of way. So we shall be grateful if you could put extra policing on particular Diwali night. And as a whole, if we can have some regular policing, police beating up and down on Rookery Road. So thank you very much listening to me.
Thanks very much, Dr. Kumar, for that. Appreciate it. What I would say, Dr. Kumar, is exactly what you say is exactly why we need to rebuild community policing. We need that preventative, proactive, problem-solving, visible community policing for the purposes of deterrence, for the purposes of crime detection, and for the purpose of building trust, legitimacy, and local intelligence, and an understanding of the particular needs of communities in particular areas. The way you do that is rebuild community policing, and that's why I've made that pledge to do that. As I say, it was a big mistake, it was counterproductive, and it was a false economy. The way that community policing has been dismantled over the last 10 years. So I'm interested to hear what you say about that. I mean, I don't know what sort of a relationship you have with your local neighbourhood policing team. I mean, obviously, from my perspective as Police and Crime Commissioner, day-to-day operational policing is the responsibility of the Chief Constable, not myself. But what I would say is that it's really important that if you can, and I don't know whether you do or not, but to have a good relationship with your local neighbourhood policing team, so they kind of understand the sorts of issues that you've referenced, around Diwali and the needs of the local community in those circumstances. And it's also a matter of serious concern what you say around the fact that female members of your community don't feel safe walking down Rookery Road. I mean, that's plainly unacceptable. And again, that's why one of my key priorities is around combating violence against women and girls and abuse. It's completely unacceptable that women do not feel safe walking down Rookery Road.
Okay, excellent. So hopefully you got your answer there. So just get in touch with your local police, or the community safety officers, or there must be a local policing unit on your side that looks after your neighbourhood. I'm happy to use that to you as well, and I'll pop along with yourself so we can do that little network and advise them on what's happening.
We do get in touch with the community police based on Rookery Road, so we keep in regular touch, but it's so, I think, obvious patrolling by a couple of police officers on the more visible road, deterrent, more frequent, it will add to the feeling of security by local people and bit of fear in the wrong characters.
Because that place has changed drastically. I think we all know. I've actually been born and bred up there and just left that road, so it has changed. Coming up to the next question, Mandeep S, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, hi Simon, it's Mandeep here.
Hi Mandeep.
Hi, thanks for taking time out today in your busy diary to speak to us today. I'm really grateful for that. I did put a little comment in the chat comments about the experience I'm having with my neighbours. Which I can only describe as being, quite a bit of a nightmare over the last 2 years. And I couldn't describe it as a sustained campaign of abuse. That's included threats with knives and threats to harm us, racial abuse, along with malicious allegations that have been made, and a real concern around substance misuse and mental health of my neighbours, and what this means in terms of the safety to my family. I think, Jazz has already expressed to you, I think you might have already explained that, my concerns to some degree. But I'm just not very happy the way, one, it's been dealt with by the police and also the landlord. I don't feel the police have kind of taken it as seriously as they should have. I feel it's been kind of minimised in terms of what I think they consider to be a neighbourhood dispute, which is far more serious than that. I would say it's harassment that's been perpetrated by my neighbours, and I just don't think it's been handled professionally. I was promised that the person next door would be interviewed, which hasn't taken place, and I don't feel that any real positive actions taken place. And equally, the landlord, I feel, has put profits before safety of people within the community. Currently, I've had this CCTV installed, and I just feel that me and my family are prisoners in our own home, where I've got a 7-year-old daughter who's really fearful of even playing in the garden due to the unpredictable personalities of my neighbours. So I'm just really concerned in terms of, I was hoping that in some way you could possibly.
I think, Manny, I think what he's looking for is he wants to raise a concern the way the police has handled it, and they've not taken the serious concerns and the well-being of the children who are very vulnerable with neighbours that are having substance abuse problem, along with racist and aggravated behaviour, which it says in the question, which is a knife. So somebody's come out with a knife and they've not taken it seriously. It's been shunned aside or put under the table, which in my eyes is kind of shocking. Doesn't matter how serious it is, when there's children and knives involved and drugs, that should be a red flag straight away for the police. And it hasn't been raised, it's just been ignored. What's your take on that, Simon?
Thank you for the inquiry. We are in the process of obtaining some background information in connection with the case as a consequence of the kind assistance of Jazz, and I know that he liaised with you about communicating the details of your case to us. So we're happy to conduct some investigations as to what action the police have or haven't taken in connection with this case, and we're in the process of doing that at the moment. That's the first thing. Second thing is, as I say, I'm really sorry to hear about the difficulties that you've had in relation to your neighbours. It sounds a deeply unpleasant and concerning experience, and so I completely understand why you feel frustrated and perplexed and upset about the way that the police have not dealt with it as perhaps they should have done. Now, the third thing I would say is, ultimately, if you're dissatisfied with the service that you have had from West Midlands Police, it is possible to submit a formal complaint, of course, and I don't know whether that's something that you have considered, and if you have considered it, whether it's something that you have actually proceeded with or not. But I mean, ultimately, there is that possibility to submit a complaint to West Midlands Police, to the Professional Standards Department, if you don't feel that they provide you with the service that you're entitled to.
Is that to the IRPC or the actual West Midlands Police? Sorry, Simon.
That would be initially to West Midlands Police Professional Standards Department.
Okay, that's fine. I'll discuss that with Mandeep, and hopefully we'll get that, because I think if you don't highlight a failure in service, nobody will ever know about it and it won't be rectified. So I think that goes out to everybody who's watching out today. If you are dissatisfied, always write out, always make everybody aware, and always do keep a note of it, because then they keep a log, keep a trail, keep a paper trail, so nobody can deny that they wasn't aware of failure of service on that one. I'm going to come down to Vandana Sharmaji. Namaste, welcome as well. Long time no see. So I'll let you ask the question what you want to.
Hi. First of all, I would say that you forgot, but we recently met 2 days ago.
I know, but I think that's what happened when you start getting a bit old.
But yeah, I'd like to thank you, Hindu Council of Central England, for organizing this, and also I'd like to thank you, Mr. Foster, for taking time out to speak with us. And I think it's something people appreciate, having face-to-face with someone on a very responsible position. So I'm kind of echoing the same kind of concerns which Mandeep and Mr. Kumar has already expressed. So I live in Walsall and work for community. Recently, a couple of months ago, a house opposite me was broken in, and the police came the next day. The lady in the house, fortunately, she just went out for a walk. When she came back, the house was broken in, and the neighborhood watch people came round, and there was a big crowd. But the police came, absolutely, it happened at 7 o'clock in the evening, and the police came next day. So that really surprised me. As a citizen, I would expect the police should be there at least to, investigate. If not to investigate, at least to give that assurance that, yes, we are there. So that's one thing. And so we definitely need more policing. And just like my other friend said, when I speak to people in the community, they also say in Walsall that they don't feel safe. That there's particularly one area, Kama area, where people are scared to get out after 8 o'clock. No person would want to go in that area. The drug, alcohol, and youth crime. Yes, youth involvement in the crime is also very evident in that area. So all these things actually worry me, and people don't feel safe. And when we don't feel safe in the community or the area that we live, it just makes you uncertain about whether you, I mean, what's the role of the police? So I know you are already taking actions, and a lot is happening, but what else can be done as a you talked about community policing, and so what as a common citizen, what can we do to help that, and what stance are you taking? Thank you.
I think we slightly lost you there towards the end,
Yeah.
Vandana, but I think I got the gist of what you were saying. So, well, no, thanks ever so much for coming on and taking the time to attend this meeting. Really appreciate it. I mean, I do know Karma. I do know that area of Walsall. I've done walkabouts there in the past. I know that there are often concerning issues in that area. You know, everything from the sorts of things that you've mentioned to discharges of firearms from time to time in the past that I'm aware of, and I've been and visited local businesses on the high street there and spoken to them about those issues. So I am aware of them. Again, you know, I come back to the point. You know, this is why we need to rebuild community policing. It's absolutely essential. That is certainly part of the solution to the sorts of problems that you're talking about in the local community there. You know, I repeat, we need that preventative, proactive, problem-solving, visible community policing for all the reasons that I've outlined previously, because that's the way that we're going to be able to solve these issues. I mean, it's not the entirety of the answer, of course. There are issues around the need to invest in preventative public services, whether that's youth services, whether that's mental health services, whether that's drug and alcohol treatment services, because the extent to which we don't invest in those essential preventative public services often means that the police end up picking up the pieces of a failure to invest in those services, you know, whether it's as a consequence of young people, whether it's people with mental ill health, or whether it's people who suffer with chronic drug or alcohol addiction. You know, quite often those issues end up driving crime and meaning that, you know, our communities are less safe. So that's really important that we invest in those services as well, because, you know, just as investing in policing is very important, it's important to invest in those essential preventative public services, because it's all part of the way that you prevent and tackle crime. And as I always say, it's always more important to start with prevention, isn't it? Prevention always has to be the starting point when you're dealing with crime, because the prevention of crime is always better than having to deal with the consequences of crime. And that's kind of what community policing is all about. It's kind of what investing in our preventative public services is all about. Because, I mean, if you're a victim of crime, yes, of course, you want justice. You want the perpetrator to be held to account. You may well want access to victim support services as well to be able to cope and recover from that experience. But you ask any victim of crime what they would rather had happened in the first place is that they haven't experienced the crime in the first place. And that's why it's always best to start with prevention. That always has to be the starting point, and it always will be for me.
Okay, I think our treasurer Hamir has got a question, so fire away.
I mean, thank you very much for taking time out, as everybody has pointed out. My question is that in your opening introduction, you spoke about a lot of initiatives that have been taken on. But my concern is that we at the ground roots level are not aware of any of these initiatives. So why is there a breakdown in that communication, and what do we need to do to try to ensure that gap is filled?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question, I mean, I have to say, because you're right. There's a lot of work going on within the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner in the West Midlands, no doubt about that. And as you alluded to, I referenced some of those in during the course of my my presentation. What I would say about that is that, I mean, obviously the West Midlands is a big area. I mean, we've got 3 million people in the West Midlands. It's about the same size as Wales, so it's about the same size as a small country. We've got 3 cities in the West Midlands, and of course it's about 350 square miles. Sometimes it is a challenge to be able to communicate all of the work that we're doing to people, throughout the entirety of the West Midlands sometimes. I mean, if you have a look at our website, all of this information is available out there. We do use social media extensively in terms of Facebook, in terms of Twitter. We do a lot of comms work. I've been, I was on the One Show, for example, primetime BBC television last week, talking about vehicle crime. My victims commissioner was on ITV News yesterday evening, talking about domestic abuse. We are regularly on the television, on the radio. We do a lot of comms work, communicating to people and explaining the work that we do. And we do a lot of, we're very often in the, we're often in the Birmingham Mail, we're often in the Express and Star. You will see that there's fairly extensive coverage of everything we're doing in those publications. But you're right, notwithstanding all of that, it is sometimes a challenge to be able to communicate to everybody all of what we're doing.
I think more of the question was from Hamir, and if I interpret it correctly, is that's understandable, and without saying it, that's more for the Western. It took me the initiative to get in touch as a Hindu representative with yourself, and unfortunately, on numerous occasions I had to do that before I even got through to yourself. And we've never seen any communication prior to this from your office for the Hindu community, apart from probably like celebrity events or on a festival when you attend. The stats, the recruitment, the facilities that you're offering, i.e. victims and victims of domestic violence, that has not filtered through to us, all the grassroots levels, all the community leaders, all the temples, all the community centres, and there is a big void there. Is that correct? Sorry, H.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I think it's not just our community. I think it's the wider community.
Yeah, from the Asian when you say from, we're speaking on that behalf, but we can't say other communities because we don't know, so we're not nominated to speak on their community. So I could say probably the Black, Asian, Muslim, Sikhs, whatever it is, but we're not the spokesperson for them. So we're the spokesperson for the Hindu community, and that's our concern today. But obviously, that could be reflected in the other communities as well if there's a shortfall.
Yeah, I mean, since I got elected, I have probably attended about 4 community events every week ever since I got elected, every single week. I'm out and about, probably often on average about 3 evenings a week, Saturdays and Sundays. I'm often out at community events. So, for example, over the Jubilee weekend, I was at the community service and torch event in Solihull on the Friday. I was at the local synagogue in Birmingham on the Saturday. I went to Nishcam in Handsworth. I went to visit the Business Improvement District, and I went to visit a mosque in Fordsley Green on the Sunday. So I did 5 separate community events on the Thursday to the Sunday.
We're not disputing that, Simon. What we're saying is the information that you've put out today, which is very, very vital, from the recruitment to, like I said, the domestic violence to, I think you're running the child exploitation now for the Commonwealth Games. That doesn't get filtered through to us. We have to dig in, or we have to reach out to you. Not the events that you attend. That's fabulous, putting your face out there and saying, yeah, you're here and you're supporting us. And I've got to say, you know what, hands up, even when I approached you, most welcoming, there was no like double standards, and I think, very opening, you hands on. So I respect you on that one. But the information and the hard work that you're doing is not getting filtered down and where it's not getting communicated to us, so we can feed it down to everybody here like today and beyond?
Okay. I mean, if that is the case, Jazz, then I want to make that better.
Yeah. So I think that's some of that action plan that you probably need to take back and say, you know what, ask your team what are they doing to communicate to communities and make it a priority, because you are doing good work. You know, without a shadow of doubt, you do have a nice plan. Hopefully you succeed in it, but that's not coming out. We didn't even know you existed for a while. Like I said, it took 3 or 4 attempts for me to get in through to you, and that was striking it out of luck, just out of the blue when somebody actually came up to us. I've got catalogue of emails that I've sent, and I've sent it through Nishcam as well. I'm trying to get into your office in the sense and speaking to Amric, etc. So there seems to be a bit of a wall, or somebody maybe like you got a gatekeeper who doesn't probably want to attend. So I don't know what it is, but maybe, you know, West Midlands Police is actually doing its job for at least securing one person, let alone us, you know.
Very, very good, Jazz. No, I can assure you, West Midlands Police are not operating any wall around me. I jolly well hope they're not, anyway. They need to stop if they are. But no, I mean, look, as I mentioned in my opening, and as I mentioned throughout my campaign, you know, I said I want to be a people and communities police and crime commissioner, and that's why, you know, I put a real emphasis on engaging with, listening to, and working with communities for all those reasons that you know I summarised in my opening comments. You know, I want to be accessible. I want to be accountable. I want to be transparent. I want to be out and about amongst communities. You know, so for example, this Saturday I'm going to 2 events on Saturday, one in King's Standing and the other in Ward End, for example. So that's a couple of events I'm going to on Saturday. I mean, Jazz, invite me to wherever you think it would be helpful for me to come and meet members of the community. And I will, you know, I always say, if I can be there, I'll be there. You know, I do many evening events. I do Saturdays, I do Sundays regularly. And, you know, I will make myself available as far as I possibly can to come out and visit you, speak to members of your community, get out and about. You know, please invite me, and as far as I possibly can, you know, I'll be there if I can be. I mean, you and I, of course, met at the community event at the Bescott Stadium, didn't we? A couple of weekends ago, which exactly, yeah. I mean that was a great event, and you know, you know, I was there. I think I was there about 3 hours.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, and most approachable. So, like I said, hats off to you, and you know, you haven't taken back. Yeah, so
that was a brilliant event. Really,
it was,
really.
and it was put through very, very shortly as well. I think it was the last minute, and even the Commonwealth Games were there. But I'm going to ask one question, and I think the Narinderji is going to ask one at the end as well, and then we're going to close it. You mentioned a lot of recruitment that's going to be happening, and you're pushing forward the BAME one. And what we are finding, and I think it doesn't need any explanation, there seems to be a double standard of when people are trying to join this from the BAME community, they seem to be struggling a lot more than the other community, should I say, trying to get in. There seems to be an invisible glass ceiling where some people are, I think Bridget's going to ask one question as well. There seems to be an invisible ceiling or some sort of blockade where they face more stringent tests, more information required from them, or a lot more information than any common person is. And that seems to be a reoccurrence, not on just one person, but several people that have come forward and said that. And what they do is they give up in the process because they don't know which doors to knock or who to approach. And this has been brought to the attention of many people before, but nothing's ever been done about it. Is this something within your remit that you can look into? Like you always say, ask the probing questions. Or do you reckon there is actually a flaw somewhere that needs to be addressed?
Okay. I mean, we have briefly had a conversation about this, of course, previously, Jazz, but I mean, you're quite right to put the question. for the purpose of this meeting. So what I would say about that is that as Police and Crime Commissioner, it's obviously not my day-to-day responsibility to carry out vetting. It's for West Midlands Police to carry out the vetting.
It's just not even vetting though, Simon. It's even through the application or the form's been sent, or failing the application. When if two people have written the same answers because they've gone to the the opening or the training one where they help you get into it. If somebody writes the same answers, one community will be saying sorry you failed, and the same community will be saying you've passed. So these are the things that we are seeing.
Okay, well, I mean, in terms of that part of the process, it's obviously something that I'm not involved in, kind of hands-on day to day, because obviously it's West Midlands Police who are operating those processes day in, day out. But my role and my responsibility is to hold the Chief Constable and West Midlands Police to account on behalf of the people and communities of the West Midlands. And if there are particular concerns that you're experiencing around what you've just given examples of, then please bring them to my attention, and I can raise them with the Chief Constable, and I can raise them with the West Midlands Police.
Okay, fine. Bridgie, I'll come to you first, then I'll ask Narinder 1 second. Sorry, Bridgie.
Thank you, Jess. It's not a question. I just want to say that this was good initiative, and we should have more of these kind of meetings. What I'm thinking is the police should have the stalls at Hindu communities activities or any sports sort of festivals or anything like that to recruit more Hindus, and like army do. That's just no question. That's what I think they should have. The police should have more stalls at the communities, Hindu communities especially.
I think at one point they were trying to. There was a lot of backlash, just like the same with the Sikh temples. There is a lot of backlash due to again these sort of issues, Simon, which have had a detrimental effect and a prolonged effect. So I think the confidence in the police force at the moment is the all-time low. That since I've been looking at it, and I can't see that on many occasions the stories that I've heard, they help themselves. I think the Dijon murder was one of them, when the sentencing has just been absolutely shambles. The investigation's absolutely shambles, and that ain't really helped. And again, this is the situations that people do still probably want to join, but they don't join, or they face a backlash. So that you need to address.
Yeah, no, Jack. I mean, I agree that as far as possible, West Midlands Police should be engaging with communities. They should have stalls, as you suggested. I think that's I know there are instances where they do that, but I think it's exactly what they should be doing. They should be doing more of it. I mean, just in terms of those couple of instances that you've mentioned there, I mean, I've met with I've had a meeting with members of the Sikh community at the Smethwick Gurdwara around issues of concern that the Sikh community have about actions that West Midlands Police have taken in recent times. I'm engaging with West Midlands Police and the Chief Constable around those concerns. I've written on behalf of the Sikh community and I'm liaising with them about those concerns at this very point in time. So I'm very well aware of those concerns. Secondly, as far as Dijon Reed is concerned, I mean, one of the places I'm out on Saturday is King's Standing. And that arises out of a local community initiative that is happening in King's Standing that arose out of the Dijon Reed trial and the sentencing, as you quite rightly said, and the concerns of the local community there. And that's where I'm going to be on Saturday morning, working with the local community around an initiative they're trying to put together arising out of the the tragic circumstances of Dijon Reed.
Yeah, doesn't that cause concern? Like, why does it have to have happened, something like that, for somebody to wake and take initiative to make changes? Why aren't the initiatives and changes taken place before a tragedy occurs? Isn't that about policing being proactive, or is it let it happen, and then if something happens, then we'll look at it?
Yeah,
better than prevention better than cause?
Absolutely, Jazz. I mean, as I mentioned before, you know, the prevention of crime is always better than having to deal with the consequences of crime. And prevention has to be the starting point all the time for me. You have to start with prevention. And that's why, as I say, part of the rationale for wanting to rebuild community policing is about making sure that we have that preventative, proactive, problem-solving, visible community policing, because, you know, that has to be the starting point for dealing with these sorts of issues in order to kind of prevent and tackle violent crime. And any other forms of crime, of course, as well.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I appreciate that. Narinderji.
Yeah, we're talking about invitations. So we're going to celebrate 76th Independence Day of India in our Arya Samaj temple on Rukri Road, Handsworth, on 21st of August, 12 p.m. So as a chairman, I'm very happy to invite you, Mr. Simon Foster, to come and attend our celebration. And I will send you a formal invitation through the email address. So I would love to introduce you to our members of Hindu community and members of our Arya Samaj. And I sincerely hope you will be able to attend our event on 21st of August. And
yeah,
I would like to thank you very much for talking to us. And we highly appreciate and the effort of Hindu Council of Central England. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Kumar. Yeah, I mean, if I don't know, Jazz. Jazz, you've got hotline to me now. Whatever the failings of communication in the past, for which I do apologise. If you've had difficulties contacting me, I can only profusely apologise. For sure, but you now have a hotline to me. You have my personal email address. You can contact me. You can contact me whenever you care to do so, and I will be here. So yeah, I don't know if you can perhaps facilitate.
And I'll get that email forwarded on.
Yeah, that invitation being passed on to me, please do. And as I say, I'll check my diary, and you know, if I'm available and I can be there, then I very much look forward to that. I mean, I would just say that, you know, I have been to the I have, for example, been along to the Indian Independence event at the Indian Consulate, for example. I went along to the Indian Consulate's residence in Edgbaston for the Holy Milan, for example. There are a couple of events I've attended in recent months.
No, it's good. I think that's what I think that was probably lacking, a bit of networking and a bit of communication. So hopefully we'll eliminate that gradually. And, you know, I'm sure Narinderji has given you ample time to look into your diary, a heads up as well. It's in August. So if you're fully booked up to, you know, in August, you know, we've got to say you must be doing something right.
well, doing something right or doing something wrong, I don't know.
Yeah. So we'll keep that posted, and maybe like
when was that? 21st of August?
No, it's usually 15th of August, India's Independence Day, but he's doing it on the 21st.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You got your calendar up, have you?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I might be away for a few days then, sadly. But well, 21st, it's a Sunday, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you never know. I might be back by then. I might be back. So anyway, I will put it. Well, send me the details, and I will definitely put it in my diary. And if I can, well, we'll see if we can make it work. If I can be there, as I always say, if I can be there, I'll be there. But yeah, I might just be away for a few days.
If you are, then I'm sure you can send your representation. I think the assistant police crimes commissioner.
Might well be able to do that. Yeah, but yeah, send us the details, and if we can make it work, I very much look forward to coming along if I can.
Okay.
Can I request to have your email address? I can send the invitation to.
If you forward that on to me in the G, I'll forward it on to him.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, is that okay, Jazz? Yeah.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Let me just read it. Please note the replay session. Okay, so that's. I'm just going to look at if there's any questions. Thank you. Okay, so Mandeep just said thank you, and he has hopefully you'll bring confidence back in the police force by dealing with this matter. Any other questions? Anything else that anybody wants to say before we close? Simon, anything else that you want to say? Oh, sorry. Sorry. 1 second. Vandana, go on.
Thank you once again, and I'm just clapping. I think the emoji is
You are.
Oh, was that a clap? I thought that was a hands up. Sorry.
Jazz, you don't know your emojis.
No. This is what happens when I'm joining your white hair club soon, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's what I am.
It gives us great reassurance in the system.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, just briefly, Jazz, I'd just say, firstly, thank you ever so much for the invitation. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate it. Really enjoyed meeting all of you, having an opportunity to speak to you. Thank you so much for your questions and for your feedback. And I look forward to perhaps having the honour and the privilege of meeting you in person in the future, if I can.
Yeah, most of the people on here are usually a community leaders, so most of them represent a temple. So hopefully they'll feed it down to grassroots and get the word out there.
Yeah, invite me along. You'll regret it.
Are you coming to work or are you coming for the curry?
Both. Invite me. You'll regret it. You won't be able to keep me away.
Oh no! I'm sure we'll be fine. You know, the Indians have very big hearts and very big places, so it should be fine. So again, so I'm trying to bring it to close. You were about to say something before that, Simon, before I really interrupted you with Vandanaji's.
Oh no, just what I said. Thanks ever so much for the invitation. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
And as I say, look forward to having the honour and privilege of meeting you all in person at some point in the future, perhaps. Excellent.
So I'm trying to bring this to a close now. So Simon, first of all, thank you again for your time as well. I'm going to reiterate what you've just said to me. So it was an honour and privilege, and I appreciate you taking your time out. I think we've had some very vital information sent out to us, what your job role is, what's going to be happening in the future with the police force, and what we can do and how we can hold the police accountable and which protocols to follow, because there is a dissatisfied service there that does need addressing. And I think the sooner it gets addressed, the better it'll be for the community, because we don't want the community taking the law into its own hands if the police are failing us. But sometimes that is the only option available to people. So, you know, we don't want to go in that way. So hopefully you're channeling the energy in the right way. And, you know, hopefully this is one of the many sessions to come going forth. Maybe we can run this on a monthly or quarterly basis to keep everybody informed and always have this communication going forth and back. So, Hamir, did you want to say anything? Because you've unmuted yourself.
No.
Okay. So, we are 30 minutes over. But again, thank everybody else for taking the time out and making the effort with contacting with Simon and ourselves. Till next time, I want to say to everybody, take care of yourself and each other. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you for coming. Thanks, Simon.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
All the best. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks a lot. Namaste.
Namaste.